Every day in the United States, millions of people walk into grocery stores and unknowingly buy foods that silently destroy their heart health. This isn't a matter of opinion. It's a reality backed by decades of clinical research and patient cases. In hospitals across the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia, heart disease continues to rank as the #1 killer. Many think it's genetics, but often it's not. It's what we're putting on our plate. This list is not meant to scare you, but to wake you up, because too many people are getting heart attacks in their 40s and 50s, and often it's because of the foods they've been eating since childhood. Processed meats like bacon, sausage, hot dogs, and deli ham are some of the most dangerous foods for the heart, and yet they're still a staple in millions of homes across the United States. These meats are often filled with sodium, nitrates, and preservatives that directly increase inflammation in the arteries. The nitrites used to preserve the red color in processed meats convert into nitrosamines in the body, which are not only carcinogenic but also extremely damaging to the endothelial lining of your arteries. You may think that a little bacon on the weekend won't hurt, but studies have shown that even moderate intake of processed meats is associated with a higher risk of heart failure and coronary artery disease. Just 2 strips of bacon daily can increase heart disease risk by over 40%. This isn't minor. It's devastating when you realize that the average American eats over 18 pounds of bacon a year. A patient in Texas once collapsed at 49 with a major heart attack. The doctors couldn't believe the extent of the arterial blockage for someone his age. He had no family history, but he had eaten sausage, eggs, and bacon every single morning since high school. Fried foods are another major offender, and yet they're still served by nearly every major fast food chain in America, from chicken nuggets to French fries and onion rings. The issue isn't just that they're fried, it's what they're fried in. Most of these foods are soaked in partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, which contain trans fats that have been directly linked to increased levels of LDL cholesterol and reduced HDL. It's not just the cholesterol, though. Trans fats trigger a cascade of inflammation inside the blood vessels, making the arteries stiff and sticky. This is how plaque forms. A single large order of fries from a fast food chain in the United States can contain over 500 milligrams of sodium and trans fats that exceed the daily limit recommended by the American Heart Association. Trans fats were banned by the FDA, but many fried foods still contain intraesterified fats, which may be even worse. Fried chicken may be a cultural favorite, especially in southern states, but it's been shown in epidemiological studies to dramatically increase the risk of cardiovascular mortality. One woman in Alabama said she had fried food 5 times a week and ended up needing a triple bypass at 58, even though she didn't smoke or drink. White bread, white rice, and refined carbohydrates are considered harmless by many people because they don't contain fat. But this is one of the biggest myths in nutrition. These foods rapidly spike blood sugar levels, which increases insulin production. Chronic high insulin leads to insulin resistance, one of the leading causes of metabolic syndrome, a condition that includes high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and abnormal cholesterol levels, all of which are precursors to heart disease. A bagel in the morning or a bowl of white rice may seem innocent, but these are pure glucose bombs. The average American consumes over 200 pounds of refined grains a year. That's staggering. People don't realize that this constant blood sugar spike leads to glycation of LDL particles, making them more likely to become oxidized and stick to artery walls. It also causes microvascular damage that worsens hypertension. This is why people with type 2 diabetes are 2 to 4 times more likely to die of heart disease. It's not just about sugar. It's the refined carbs hidden in everything from sandwich buns to pizza crusts. Soda and sugary drinks are probably the most dangerous beverage category for your heart, and yet they're still aggressively marketed across the United States. A single can of soda contains up to 40 grams of sugar, mostly in the form of high fructose corn syrup, a substance that has been repeatedly linked to fatty liver disease, increased triglycerides, and high blood pressure. When you drink soda, you're not just consuming empty calories. You're triggering a spike in insulin, followed by a flood of fructose to the liver, which turns it into fat. This leads to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which contributes directly to high cholesterol and vascular inflammation. It's not just soda. Energy drinks, sweet teas, vitamin waters, and sports drinks are all part of the same category. One teenager in California developed prediabetes at just 16 years old due to daily consumption of energy drinks. These drinks are often sold right next to water bottles in grocery stores in America, making them seem harmless. But they're a ticking time bomb for your heart. Frozen meals and microwave dinners are a quiet killer. These foods are designed for convenience, but are often loaded with sodium, artificial preservatives, and trans fats. A single frozen dinner can contain more than 1,500 milligrams of sodium, nearly the entire recommended daily intake. This excess sodium doesn't just cause bloating. It directly raises blood pressure by causing the kidneys to retain more water. High blood pressure is one of the strongest predictors of heart attack and stroke. What's even worse is that many of these meals contain modified starches and monosodium glutamate, MSG, which stimulate hunger and cause you to eat more. People often microwave one and still feel hungry. This leads to overeating and weight gain, which further worsens insulin resistance and cholesterol levels. Hospitals in Canada and the United Kingdom have seen rising heart-related admissions linked to obesity, much of it caused by processed and packaged food addiction. A middle-aged man from Ohio suffered a minor heart attack, and when asked about his diet, admitted he ate frozen meals 5 nights a week due to his work schedule. Pastries, donuts, cakes, and cookies. These baked goods might be comforting, but they are among the worst offenders when it comes to heart health. They're loaded with refined flour, trans fats, and added sugars. This trio creates a perfect storm. It raises triglycerides, spikes insulin, and causes inflammation. Many pastries still contain partially hydrogenated oils or palm oil, which can worsen LDL profiles and lower HDL. Even if the label says 0 grams trans fat, if it contains less than 0.5 grams per serving, the FDA allows companies to round it down. But no one eats just one cookie or half a donut. One woman from Michigan developed severe chest pain and was diagnosed with atherosclerosis. Her cardiologist discovered she had a habit of eating commercial donuts for breakfast for over 10 years. The sugar causes glycation, which makes the blood vessels stiff and brittle. Combine that with the oils and flours, and you get massive metabolic dysfunction that silently erodes heart function over time. Pizza might be America's favorite food, but it's also a cardiovascular bomb. The typical pizza slice contains refined flour crust, processed meat toppings like pepperoni, heavy cheese filled with saturated fat, and a sodium-loaded tomato sauce. This combination elevates blood pressure, cholesterol, and triggers inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein. One large pizza can exceeds 3,000 milligrams of sodium, far above the daily limit. The cheese contains arachidonic acid, which can promote clot formation. Add the pepperoni, which contains nitrates and oxidized fats, and you're essentially eating a heart attack in slices. Emergency room doctors in Australia have reported clusters of heart incidents on weekends, often after people binge on pizza, alcohol, and fried foods. That's not a coincidence. It's a pattern of dietary stress triggering acute heart events. Ice cream may seem innocent, even comforting after a long day, but it can quietly load your arteries with harmful saturated fat and sugar. Just 1 cup of premium ice cream can contain up to 20 grams of saturated fat, over 30 grams of sugar, and more than 300 calories. That's more than a cheeseburger from a drive-thru in many American chains. What makes ice cream especially dangerous is that it's often consumed in large portions, especially during emotional eating episodes. People don't stop at 1 scoop. They eat directly from the tub. High saturated fat increases LDL cholesterol, while the sugar raises triglycerides, both of which are primary contributors to arterial plaque. There have been countless stories from United States patients with early signs of coronary artery disease who swore they didn't eat bad foods, yet consumed ice cream almost every night for decades. In colder cities across Canada and the United Kingdom, despite the climate, ice cream is still a popular dessert. It's not about the temperature. It's about routine habits that damage heart function over time. Energy bars and protein bars are often disguised as health food, but are usually packed with sugar alcohols, hydrogenated oils, and synthetic additives. Most commercial bars sold in U.S. health food chains are glorified candy bars with added whey isolate and flavorings. Some contain over 25 grams of sugar per bar, coming from high fructose corn syrup, brown rice syrup, or even artificial sweeteners that confuse the body's insulin signaling. Even the high-protein ones can spike insulin if the carb content is high enough. One 52-year-old man from Florida, working as a delivery driver, used to eat 2 nutrition bars a day thinking they were healthy. At his annual checkup, his LDL was over 160, and he had signs of early plaque formation. He couldn't understand why until he brought his food with him. These bars also contain preservatives like BHT and BHA, which are banned or restricted in some countries due to their potential cardiovascular and endocrine-disrupting effects. They're marketed with words like clean or lean, but in reality they fuel insulin resistance and inflammation. It's shocking how many patients in U.S. hospitals believe they're eating healthy simply because a product is labeled protein. Restaurant salads might look like a healthy option, but many of them are anything but. In the United States, popular chains add calorie-dense dressings, candied nuts, processed meats, and fried toppings to these dishes. A single serving of Caesar salad with croutons and creamy dressing can easily surpass 1,000 calories, with over 20 grams of saturated fat and 1,800 milligrams of sodium. It's deceptive because you believe you're making a heart-healthy choice. But in reality, these salads are drowning in oxidized oils, hidden sugars, and flavor enhancers. In one case, a woman from California who was trying to eat light would order restaurant salads almost daily during her lunch break. After a year, her cholesterol numbers worsened significantly. It was traced back to the daily load of commercial dressings rich in soybean oil and trans fats. Many of these oils are stored in clear plastic bottles, exposed to light and heat, which causes rancidity and oxidation before even reaching your plate. Oxidized fats promote endothelial dysfunction, which is the beginning of atherosclerosis. Salad should be healthy, but when it's weaponized with processed ingredients, it becomes a hidden threat to your heart. Canned soups and instant noodles are among the most consumed pantry items in American households, especially for those living on a tight budget. But these items are sodium bombs that raise blood pressure like nothing else. A single serving of canned soup can contain over 900 milligrams of sodium, and 1 pack of instant ramen can contain up to 1,700 milligrams. That's already above the daily limit set by the American Heart Association. The worst part? People don't eat half a can or half a packet. They eat the whole thing. One father from Pennsylvania, living paycheck to paycheck, used to feed his kids instant noodles 5 nights a week. When he had a heart attack at 43, doctors found he had developed stage 2 hypertension. His kidneys were struggling to filter excess sodium, and the chronic pressure had stiffened his arteries. These foods often contain MSG, which excites the nervous system and can lead to blood pressure spikes in sensitive individuals. They also contain zero fiber, which is essential to reduce cholesterol reabsorption. Heart attacks don't just happen to smokers or the elderly. They happen to people who've been eating instant noodles for dinner for 15 years straight. Granola and breakfast cereals are another deceptive food group that has been marketed as heart-healthy for decades in the United States. Bright boxes with heart logos and slogans like whole grain give the impression that you're starting the day off right. But most commercial cereals are loaded with added sugars, synthetic vitamins, and refined grains. Even so-called healthy granolas can contain more sugar than a glazed donut and almost zero actual fiber if it's been overly processed. People pour it into bowls and douse it with low-fat milk, believing they're doing something good for their cholesterol. But the opposite is happening. One woman from Illinois who ate cereal every morning for breakfast and granola as a snack thought she was eating clean. But at 61, she was diagnosed with coronary artery calcification and placed on statins. The sugar content in many of these cereals spikes blood glucose, triggers insulin release, and increases triglyceride production in the liver. Even cereals labeled natural or organic are often baked in vegetable oil and honey, creating a metabolic roller coaster that can eventually harm your heart. Bottled salad dressings, condiments, and sauces are among the biggest hidden threats to cardiovascular health. They don't seem dangerous at all, but a few tablespoons of ranch, ketchup, or barbecue sauce can contain over 10 grams of sugar, plus hydrogenated oils and preservatives. The high fructose content raises blood triglycerides, while the oxidized fats increase vascular inflammation. A man from Georgia who avoided fast food and cooked at home still had high cholesterol and blood pressure. After tracking his meals, it turned out he used bottled sauces with every meal: store-bought Alfredo, Caesar, teriyaki, and garlic dressing. These sauces also contain emulsifiers and stabilizers that interfere with gut bacteria, leading to low-grade systemic inflammation. Long-term, this inflammation contributes to atherosclerosis and arterial stiffness. Sauces might not look like a heart problem, but over time, they become one. In Australia and Canada, public health authorities have issued warnings about sodium content in store-bought sauces, but in the U.S., most consumers are still unaware of the damage they're doing with every drizzle. Flavored coffee drinks and fancy cafe beverages are silently pushing millions toward heart complications every single day. A medium caramel-flavored coffee from a well-known American chain can contain more sugar than a can of soda, with added syrups, whipped cream, and caramel drizzle. These drinks also contain artificial flavorings and emulsifiers that burden the liver and spike blood glucose. One office worker in New York City admitted to drinking 2 flavored lattes per day as her routine. By the time she was 38, her doctor flagged elevated triglycerides and borderline hypertension. She wasn't overweight and exercised regularly, but her diet was sabotaging her heart from the inside. These drinks also stimulate cortisol, the stress hormone, when combined with caffeine and sugar, contributing to high blood pressure and increased cardiovascular strain. In the United Kingdom, similar trends are now being seen, with rising rates of heart issues in younger demographics due to high-calorie coffee consumption that's falsely perceived as harmless or even sophisticated. Many Americans believe if it's not a donut or fried food, it's safe. But these drinks are liquid desserts with a direct link to cardiovascular dysfunction. These foods aren't rare. They're everywhere. In vending machines, grocery stores, restaurants, gas stations, cafeterias, and even schools. They're part of the modern Western diet that's eroding heart health meal by meal. Most people don't feel the damage immediately. That's what makes it so dangerous. By the time the symptoms appear, chest tightness, shortness of breath, palpitations, years of damage have already accumulated. What we eat either protects our heart or destroys it, and the clock doesn't stop ticking just because we feel okay today. In the United States, it's not unusual for someone in their 40s to end up on blood pressure medications, statins, and blood thinners, all because of food choices that were never questioned. That's the real tragedy.